I'm on. You know what? I'm on neither one of their sides. They're both idiots for this.
This is Stacking the Box with NFL insider Matt Verderame and Mark Carman. Week 5, Stacking the Box. Welcome in. Thank you so much for putting on Stacking the Box with our NFL superstar, Matt Verderame. Yours truly, Mark Carman. We truly appreciate you listening whenever you do, and especially to our loyal people out there. Verderame, let me ask you something. If you were an NFL coach and your season started out 0-4, and you lost on a Thursday night, and your family was close by, but the whole team was going on back, do you think you would fly back with your football team and perhaps bury yourself in your office and figure out how to win a football game in the NFL? Or do you think you'd stay around and get a lap dance at a bar? What do you think you would do? I'm curious.
I think I'd get on the plane. I think is what I would do, right? Like, I cannot believe that anyone is this dumb, but yet Urban Meyer really, really proven himself.
Well, so let's go down that one. Do you think he's trying to get himself fired?
No.
You don't?
No, I don't. Because I think, look, if he really he just quit. All right. He'll just go take the USC job and be done with it. I don't think that. I think he's used to being basically Teflon. Nothing's ever going to touch him, because you know how this stuff goes, Carm. I mean, you've been around colleges. Like in Columbus, Ohio, and he's the head coach at Ohio State, nothing's going to stick to him. He's the most important guy in town. Like, all the businesses rely on Ohio State football. The paper relies on Ohio State coverage. The TV outlets rely on Ohio State for sport. They're not going to bury Urban Meyer. That's not going to happen. That video never would have seen the light of day if that happened when he was the Ohio State head coach.
So do we just think that, hey, this is a guy who has literally gotten away with basically everything you can get away with and just still gets, keeps on being promoted because he wins football games? I mean, we bring in the strength coach from Iowa who was fired amid allegations of mistreating black players. That's the guy that I want on my staff.
Was fired within 24 hours.
Yeah. I mean,
was there for less than a day.
And there we go. How about let's he was let me get my guy Tim Tebow down here. I think that's a great idea for the organization. This is not a huge crime, but just the logic of it. I'm going to bring Tim in, and I'm going to have him play tight end, which he's never played, and then he's going to have 16 snaps in a preseason game, and then I'm going to cut him. And then I'm going to go party after I 0-4 and get a lap dance. Not really a lap dance, but we get the point.
Well, I mean, it's essentially
this
right.
Is good
No,
stuff.
of course. Look, there have been so many things that have gone horribly wrong since he's been there. Right. Don't forget about when they went over the top at OTAs and they had to pay like $250,000 fine. Okay, because he can't figure out the rule book or just couldn't be bothered to. And this all too, his ending at Ohio State was not clean. Okay, you go back, now he ended up leaving officially because of health reasons. And I'm not here to say whether or not that's the real reason he left or whatever. That was the official reason he gave. Fine, fair enough. He was suspended, okay, for the first 3 games of the 2018 season because an assistant coach on the team, Zach Smith, had domestic abuse allegations levied against him that were, I don't know if you want to say covered up, but certainly not maybe investigating the way they should have been. And this is a direct quote from Meyer per the Columbus Dispatch from back then. Quote, "They were a young couple. Anytime I get a phone call or something like that, I tell my boss and I let the experts do their job. It came back to me what happened. We advised him in counseling and moved forward." I mean, now this was when, and Zach Smith, by the way, was in Florida, and then he was at Ohio State with him. I mean, he knew Zach Smith really well, and nothing happened. Like, until everything came to light with Smith really publicly. And this was, I mean, if you go back and look, we don't have to get that into it, but it was well reported. I mean, it's all out there if you want to go look it up. And, he then quit, or left shortly thereafter. So it's not like Urban Meyer's had some unbelievable streak of great behavior behind him. And, oh, wow, this is stunning. Like, it's really not that stunning.
Yeah, and let me just throw in a couple more. The Jaguars, which was reported, they were one of the 3 lowest vaccination rates in the league. So that speaks to him being a slightly crazy man, right? Hey, don't worry about it. This is way too punitive by the league. You guys do what you're going to do. I'm not going to enforce it. Versus standing up there. Hey, this is the league's mandate. This is we want you guys to follow along because we don't want to be impacted. So clearly he was doing the opposite. And by the way, NFL schedules can be very tough, and sometimes your record is not indicative of actually the team you are. In the case of the Jaguars, you got blown out by the Texans, who maybe played the worst game in the history of football against the Bills. So
yeah. Oh, it's indicative of who they are. They suck.
I mean,
yeah.
Let's have a quarterback controversy with Trevor Lawrence and Gardner Minshew. That's what you want to do. Okay, I just listen.
Do you think he's there by the end of the season? Like week 18, they're running on the field. Is he with them?
I would never have said no because like, why would you take the job? Like I didn't understand the conversation that has been going on for months now. Will Urban make it through? Will Urban make it for the season? He hasn't even coached a game yet. Of course he's going to make it through the season. But this is going so epically bad that I guess my point in wanting to start the show with it here is just the way we bend over backwards for people because they've won football games in the past or have had success in the past. If we just put it to sports life period, it's just this guy does not deserve to be where he's at. And look what you're getting for it. Jacksonville, what are you doing, man? You've got the number 1 pick in the draft. You got one of the most talented quarterbacks to come out in a long time. At least that's what he was thought of before the season started.
I still think he is. He's extremely talented.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
And you want to saddle him with this guy? I mean, come on, it's just bad news. But here, let's go on the field.
Let's do it.
So a lot of as you're putting, we're sort of at the quarter pole, 4 games through 17 game season, so not quite. You're asking the question, the Verderame rundown, best team in football, which some people are screaming that it's the Arizona Cardinals, which feels crazy to me. Let's not go nuts.
Only undefeated team.
I understand, but let's not be an idiot here. I mean, you want to say the Cardinals are a legit playoff team and might even win the division, I can hear it, but don't tell me they're the best team in football.
I agree with you. Look, and that's why I always like to do an actual analysis of this, right? Because you go on ESPN.com or something. I'll call them out this morning. You go in their power rankings, and it's just like who's got the best record, and that's all it is all the way down. And it's just like it's not a power ranking. Like a moron could sit there and just rank those. I mean, you get a little kid who could just sit there and, okay, well, this team's got a better record than this team. Who are the best teams? Who are the teams? And the way I look at that is if you put these 2 teams in a playoff game right now, who do you think would win the game? I think through 4 weeks, I still think the Rams are better than the Cardinals, even though they lost to them. Like, I get it. But if you said to me, look, they're going to see each other again, I think Los Angeles is the better team, had a bad day. I think Tampa's good, but I got to tell you one thing that concerns me with Tampa right now. And you and I talked about this. They last year were incredibly healthy. They got a lot of guys hurt. Now, it's early, and guys can come back and whatnot. They have a lot of injuries. Their secondary is getting cooked. I mean, Mac Jones just took them to the cleaners. They're not getting pressure. But I got to be honest, man. I still like Tampa. I still like the Packers. I still like the Rams more than the Cardinals. I might even like Dallas. Like I don't, although I think Arizona belongs above Dallas right now. I think all those teams are in the mix. I don't know that I have a best team in the NFC. I think all of them in the AFC might take a pick. There's 5 or 6 teams you can throw in there.
Let's just talk about Bucks Pats for 1 second here. What do you think of Mac Jones?
He's a game manager. That's what he is. Accurate, smart, but he's not going to be like Justin Herbert. I don't think so.
Okay, but he played a good game?
Yes, very solid game.
Okay. And it was raining, right? At the end of the game?
Pouring.
Okay. And it was a 56-yard field goal.
Yes, it was. They should have gone for it on 4th and 3.
So when you're sitting on the Verderame couch, you were saying you got to go?
Yes. I can honestly say in the moment, yes. I thought that's a long way to kick a field goal in that kind of condition. Now, I know we live in a different age, and even, that you grew up with and I grew up with, where, in the 90s, if some guy tried a 56-yard field goal, you pretty much thought he had maybe a 1 in 4 shot of hitting it. That's not the case anymore. You probably at least have a 50% chance. That's a long way to kick a field goal in a driving rainstorm. My thing is too, like the snap can go wrong, the holds can go wrong. Now it didn't. They got it down. The operation was smooth. I thought on 4th and 3, the way they were throwing the football, especially short and underneath, yeah, I would have gone for it.
So I pulled some stats for this one for the record on the field goal kick from that distance, because it's right. Me growing up 56-yarder, you might as well be kicking it from 70.
Yeah.
Right. But since 2010, you want to take a guess what percentage of kicks have been made from 56 yards out?
From 56? Like a third.
So 61%, which is
have
crazy.
Been hit?
Yes. Isn't that crazy? I was stunned
by
that.
That is mind-blowing. 61%.
61%. Now, and during the same period, if you go back to 2010, 4th and 3, what percentage is the conversion rate?
40%.
48. So
then percentage-wise, although I guess, you know what, there also has to be a factor a little bit. That's great work by you to have those numbers. I would think maybe part of that is that if you're kicking that field goal, you have a great kicker.
Right.
You're probably not trotting out some guy who's a complete bum. Like you're trotting out Justin Tucker.
Let alone a guy like Nick Folk, who's got a left knee injury, hadn't hit a field goal from 56 or longer since 2010.
Yeah,
okay.
It's a lot.
So I'm just, and we all think that Bill Belichick's a great coach, right? And scheme that game well. But you're telling me, to your point about Mac Jones, game manager, this dude played a great game. And yet Belichick's choice in that moment is, I trust this dude with his bad knee in the rain to boot a 56-yarder. By the way, we're going to give the ball back to Tom Brady. I trust all of that more than him picking up 4th and 3.
Well, I guess that was the biggest reason, and we can move on. The biggest reason I would have gone for it on 4th and 3 is even if they hit the field goal, Brady's got 2 timeouts in 50 seconds.
Right.
I'm not giving him that. I would have said, you know what? Screw it. We're going for it and trying to get closer, or we're losing, because I'm not giving him the ball. But
so we're getting to my theory here, because I don't think it's logical to think that watching Mac Jones that game, that this is all but better. But I think somewhere in Belichick's mind, he wanted to put Brady back out on the field and stop him. I think somewhere in there, he had the desire to that's right. I am willing to kick it to him, and we're going to, and I was schemed for this moment when I put nothing on tape the week before when we got smoked and whatever. I don't know. Like, I think there was some ego in that decision of him wanting to stop Brady, is my deep, calm, maybe even unconscious hypothesis of why he made that decision, because that decision was straight off. And by the way, he did hit the upright, just missed it. So
had the distance.
So maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I was thinking. Like, this.
By the way, that was the loudest upright I've ever heard in my life.
A good upright, very, very.
But
solid.
All right, well, let's get back to it though. All right, so my answer as far as the best team, I know it's a horrible answer for podcast. Like, I don't have one right now. I think there's about 10 teams in the same mix. And for the AFC, by the way, I'll just toss them out there: Buffalo, Cleveland, Baltimore, Kansas City. You want to throw the Chargers in there? That's fair. Like, fine, throw them in there. Do you have a team? Do you have a team that you look at through 4 weeks? No, I think that's clearly the best team.
Yeah, I think the Kansas City Chiefs are the best team. I don't care.
Have you seen their defense?
Yeah. And by the way, the Chiefs haven't covered, and they were brutal in covering for, I don't know.
Finally did it. On Sunday.
Carm had them right here, buddy. I said they are going to smoke the Eagles. There's no way that Andy Reid's going back there after everything that's happened here. I was sweating it out for a second. They were actually going to cover it, but they did. So you're telling me right now, you're Verderame, you have to bet your half of your incredible fortune that you've amassed working at FanSided. You're telling me you wouldn't bet on the Chiefs to win it all? Over, if you had to pick one team, who are you picking?
I don't know. I honestly, I guess I would, only because I don't have a strong feeling toward anybody at the moment. And if you said to me, you have to pick a team, I mean, give me the quarterback, him,
right?
Like, give me him, because he could drag their worthless ass to a Super Bowl. I mean, look, they were every bit as bad defensively in 2018 when he won the MVP. And there were a coin flip or a D Ford's offsides penalty from going to the Super Bowl, and they would have killed the Rams in that game. So, like, to me, I guess, but and we're gonna get into it. The AFC. There's a lot of implications coming out of this game, Week 5, Buffalo, Kansas City. A lot of them. I think this game is going to shape the way the road to the Super Bowl goes in the AFC.
So, all right, since you brought up Buffalo, Kansas City, one of my favorite sites that I like to go to as far as the gambling, and by the way, FanSided is doing an absolutely phenomenal job. Big Man Bets comes out on Wednesday. Where I try to figure out, though, how I'm going to bet, I like to go against the public. So
you're a big fan of that.
Yes, I love to fade the public, and I like to fade the public on where it makes sense. Who do you think the public is on, Buffalo and Kansas City?
Kansas City.
Right. They're not. They're on Buffalo. 64% of the money right now are on the Bills getting 3. So people are down on the Chiefs. And so I love Kansas City this week, for the record. But that's it. Isn't that interesting?
It is. Usually the Chiefs get all the public money because of Mahomes and Arrowhead and everything else. I will say this about this game. And if you want to hear my full, unbridled takes on this, you're a Chiefs fan and listening to this podcast, subscribe to the Arrowhead Addict podcast, because on Thursday you're going to get an hour of it. I have no idea what to expect in this game. None. Normally, man, I have a really strong feeling about most games, especially with Kansas City. I could see the Bills scoring 45 points. I could also see this game being that classic, everybody's down on them and they come out and they win 42-20. I could see them doing it. Because I will say this, Buffalo's defense has been great all year. They're the number 1 defense in the league. They have 2 shutouts in the last 3 games. Kansas City's offense is number 1 in the NFL. It has been absurd. I think the Chiefs are going to score plenty of points in the game. Of that matchup, I think the Chiefs will win the matchup. But Buffalo has played Ben Roethlisberger, Taylor Heineke, Davis Mills, and Jacoby Brissett. All right? I mean, those 4 guys combined aren't as talented as Mahomes. And the Chiefs' offensive weapons are ridiculous compared to those 4 teams. And Josh Gordon's playing, which adds a wrinkle of who the hell knows how they're going to use him. I think the Chiefs are going to score a lot of points. My question is, can the Chiefs do anything defensively? If they can, I think they'll win the game. But it's a big game, man. Buffalo wins. They're 2 up on the Chiefs with the breaker. The AFC playoffs, I think, go through Buffalo if the Bills win this game. If the Chiefs win this game, you're now tied, and Kansas City's technically ahead of them with the breaker in hand. And the Chiefs are through by far the hardest portion of their schedule. And all of a sudden, you start looking at that thing going, if there's a rematch, it's probably at Arrowhead. So I think this game has massive, massive implications.
Sunday night, Arrowhead. I'm looking forward to it. Amidst the baseball playoffs as well. By the way, the White Sox will be playing at that time. It'll be a very, very, very high sports night in Carm's life over here. There's some great games, though, in Week 5. You got the Cardinals hosting the Niners, which is a sweet game. New York and Dallas is super interesting to me. Cleveland on the road at the Chargers is a winner. And then Thursday night, we got Rams in Seattle, which is another great game. A lot of good ones.
A lot of good ones. I don't know how you feel about Indy and Baltimore. It's at least interesting. I don't know if I'd call it a great game, but it's not a great game, but it's an interesting game. No, there's a lot of good ones. There's a lot of good games this week. And hey, you know what? You got to give them their due, man. The Bengals are hosting the Packers. If the Bengals win that game, a lot more interesting. And I'll give you one other one that I think is an interesting game. Steelers are hosting Denver. This is Custard's last stand for Pittsburgh. You got to win this game. You've lost 3 in a row, 2 at home. You're getting a Denver team that's basically beaten you, me, and Sean the first 3 weeks of the season, and then get just boat raced by the Ravens. Are the Broncos any good? Because if the Broncos lose this game, to me, the Broncos just throw them out. I don't even need to see the rest of the Broncos season to know they're not that good if they lose to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh cannot score a point. So I'm very curious how that game goes.
I'm actually shocked that you're giving him one more chance to right the ship, sitting at 1-3 with everybody 3-1 in that division. Yes, it's early, 17-game schedule, but I think most people have Pittsburgh buried and not coming back. By the way,
I'll say this though, and I'll be quick. I do, but I also think that's a proud franchise. That's a very well coached team. and they're not just going to go quietly into the night. Like now they may not be good enough to do much about it, but you know how it is. Sometimes you look at a team, they're just going to roll over. They're used to losing. They're losers. That's not the Steelers. It's not.
No question. No question. And every comment from Ben Roethlisberger, what do you expect him to say? But he's still maintaining as positive as an attitude as you possibly can. One little nugget too, just about the Broncos. Vic Fangio and John Harbaugh having this weird battle.
What the hell? Yeah.
Like, and I love Fangio. I love him, but he kind of needs to relax. I don't know whose side you're on in the.
I'm on. I'm on neither one of their sides. They're both idiots for this. Like Harbaugh running. For anyone who doesn't know what happened, the Ravens are up 23-7 with like 5 seconds left. Could have just knelt down, ended the game, and Harbaugh calls a run because the Ravens have this streak of 100-yard rushing games. And if they had gotten 100 yards against Denver, they tie the record with the Steel Curtain Steelers back in the 70s. They run the ball, they get to 100 even, and Fangio's furious that they ran the ball instead of taking it. Now, look, my feeling is Fangio needs to just shut up about it. Like, it's an NFL game, man. Like, you know what? Then don't give up the rushing yardage. Like, then just stop them and go upfield. That being said, everybody and their mother kneels there. And I know it's like this catchy new age thing to just be like, oh, there's just a whole bunch of old guys. It's just dumb. Like, look, you know what? Harbaugh should take the knee and just be a responsible adult in the room and not be chasing some stupid record, which, by the way, they have kind of a weird history of doing. Like, they've won like 19 preseason games in a row. They're oddly proud of that. Like, it matters. Like, and Harbaugh after the games, like, it's a really important record. Bro, no, it's not. Nobody gives a shit how many times you rush for 100 yards. Like, nobody cares. Win a playoff game. It's a very weird thing.
Yeah. And I'm with Vic for the record. Like, dude, if you're going to get the record, you need to get the record in the game when it matters, not going
that's
for
so cheap and stupid.
It's cheap and stupid and pathetic, and it gives your whole record a damn asterisk. However, I just think that Vic, like, don't even acknowledge what happened. Like, I thought it was almost beneath him to get in the war. And then Harbaugh's response, like, well, why did they throw the ball in the end zone down 23-7? You can't get a 16-point play because, dude, what do you mean? Why did they throw the ball in the end zone? They're working on plays. They're what are they supposed to do? Roll out there and take a kneel down themselves? That's you take advantage of the 60 minutes of a football game in a game you lost. There's nothing wrong with what the Broncos did at all. Like, that was even a worse defense by Harbaugh. Overall, I'm with Fangio, but he should have just let it go. Is my overall take.
Look, worry more about the fact he threw for 148 yards.
Yeah, well, it's Teddy was off and then now injured, and they're back where they were. It is now time to place your bets with the managing editor of FanSided, and for all your betting needs, go to winbet.com. WYNNBET. We have 6 games on the docket. And we're starting, by the way, we got the Bears on here, which I'm very excited about. And of course, we'll look at the Bills and Chiefs. But we're starting with what's going to be an awesome game Thursday night. So get it in early here. Rams are a 1.5 point favorite at Seattle. The total is 54. Ben, the public absolutely positively loves the Rams here. Do you?
I think I do. And we've had all sorts of conversations about opportunistic times to fade the public. But I think they have it right, considering that the Rams were still the favorites in this division. Seattle, up until last week, really hadn't been playing good football. And the Rams have an opportunity on a short week. Yes, it's traveling to a difficult place to play, but I think the matchup presents itself much better this week. The Seahawks are atrocious against the run. I think the Rams want to get back to that a little bit. You saw more of Darrell Henderson. We'll see whether or not Sony Michel gets more of an opportunity. When he had a full go, he was fairly effective until that fumble last week. But I just think the Rams are the more complete team, and Seattle still has all sorts of issues, especially stopping the run. So the fact that it's currently at only -1.5 on WinBet is still an advantageous line for me. Also, something to keep in mind: the Rams have gone 4-0 in overs this year. Two teams that are probably going to go back and forth. But I think this is a good opportunity for the Rams to bounce back. I still think they're the best team in that division, so I'll take the -1.5 on the road.
I think the over. I think you're right with the over. Although I usually always tend on these to just pick a team one way or the other, so I'll continue that tradition. I like Seattle at home in this game. I think the Rams are the better team on a neutral field, and I think over the long haul they will win the division. This is a short turnaround. They just lost at Arizona, and you can say, well, they'll come back. They'll be desperate. Neither coach has really had the advantage. The last couple of years, they split both years. 2018, the Rams did sweep. I don't have a big feel for the game, so I'm just going to kind of take the points on this one. I think Seattle is not as good, but they're home and they're explosive. Now, the Rams shut them down last year in the playoffs. Give credit there. I know different teams, whatever, but I just like Seattle in this spot early in the year. Loud crowd. It's a hard place to play. I'll take the points in Seattle, even though it's obviously not a big line.
Everybody had the Rams in the Super Bowl. It's going to be Ram panic after they get smoked by the Seahawks this week. I'm with Verderame week on our first game today for the record. And I rarely step in on these things, but I just felt the need to step in on that one, gentlemen. You both were 3-3 last week. The Browns, not exactly scoring points this past week, but that defense dominant again in Minnesota. God bless them. They're a 1-point favorite at the Chargers. This is a great matchup. 49.5 is the number. Ben.
I like this matchup for the Browns, in particular because their strength matches up well against what the Chargers have struggled with the most all season. That's stopping the run. Going into last week, the Chargers were dead last. Despite how good their defense has been, they're arguably the best pass defense right now in the NFL. In fact, they were number one entering week 4 in opposing yards to wide receivers, but they're having issues at stopping the run, and that's what the Browns do best. So if anything, that opens up a great opportunity for Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt to control time of possession. They're going to do that anyway, but it's even more of an incentive for them to continue to go ahead and do that on the road. Again, we saw in the Monday night game that even though the Chargers are at home, it's not really a home game. You're going to have a smattering of Browns fans all over SoFi Stadium. So there's really no home field advantage. And Justin Herbert's an absolute baller, and I still think he'll have a solid game, but this just plays so well into what Cleveland wants to do. The fact that you can basically get them at a pick 'em sets up very well. I know it's 2 straight favorites, and underdogs have been awesome all year, but this feels like a really good opportunity, especially with the public just seeing the Chargers and coming off a short week. I like the opportunity to go on Cleveland for this week. I like them a lot.
Benny convinced me because I have gone back and forth in this game a million times because I agree with you. They're going to run the ball really well in the game, right? Like what you said is exactly what I was going to say. But also, you look at this game, and I think like the Browns should be able to get a pass rush in this one. Like Storm Norton's been a disaster at right tackle for the Chargers. I would think you're going to see Clowney, but I wouldn't be shocked if Garrett sees a couple snaps over there as well. I think that the corners for Cleveland, you can do enough there with Ward on Allen, or maybe you put him on Mike Williams, you double the other guy. I got to say, the one thing that does scare me in this game, if you're from our perspective if you're taking the Browns, like Mayfield has not been good this year. He has not played well.
Missed several open throws to Odell Beckham last week.
He's terrible. Like if you're the Browns and he plays like this the rest of the year, you cannot extend him. I'm sorry. You can't pay him $35 million a year to do this. And Herbert, I think, is the much better quarterback at home.
Agreed.
So I hesitate, but I do think overall the Browns are the better team. And the Chargers are still the Chargers lost to Dallas. They were +4 in the turnover ratio against Kansas City and barely won the game. And that Raiders game, they should have killed the Raiders in that game and were hanging on by a thread with 10 minutes to go. So I don't know. I'm with you. I'll take Cleveland, kind of bite the bullet, take the Browns.
So just for the record, I don't know who the Chargers fans are in LA. I'm assuming they're not driving up from San Diego, but watching that game last night, how do you?
It's embarrassing.
Well, they don't even know when to cheer. Don't scream when Justin Herbert has the football and they're trying. That's not the time that you're yelling. Just because the Raiders fans are yelling, You don't try to out yell them. You might want to choose to, I don't know, tell them to calm down. Just start talking to them. Talk to the Raider fan next to you and tell them, like, ask them a question. So you're trying to make it count. They don't even understand when to yell. I don't know.
It wasn't good. It was not good.
That I don't know why that bothers me, but it bothered me. All right, the Bears are on the road. They're going to Vegas. Matt Nagy can't get out of his own way. I don't believe him when he says that Andy Dalton is going to be the starter. If he's healthy, I'm assuming that he's just saying that because that's what he has to say early in the week. I'm assuming he'll come to his senses. But they are a 5-point underdog at Vegas with a number of 45.5. Ben, you've been texting me about the brilliance that is the Bears. Are you picking them this week?
Yeah, I'm not picking them at all. In fact, the moment that you said he's going to come to the right realization that he's going to play Justin Fields this week, come to his senses, what indication has Matt Nagy given you that that's going to happen? The only reason they ended up playing Justin Fields and announcing it on Saturday night with nobody paying attention was because Andy Dalton must have had some sort of a setback because he was going to be a game time decision on Sunday for some reason against the Lions after what happened in week 3. The Bears are a complete, absolute, and total joke of itself. And also we saw the betting market kind of indicate that there's zero confidence in Chicago based on the coaching staff and based on everything that's been happening over the course of the season. The line opened at 3.5. It shot up to 5.5 at some books. WinBet currently has it at 5. It's Matt Nagy, despite having an opportunity for a feel-good moment for the team for Justin Fields to say, we really thought the future of our franchise had a great opportunity, 5 passes of 20 yards down the field, to really sort of praise up his guy, turned the whole press conference into, Bill Lazor called the plays, but, I'm still involved in the process. It's just so petty at this point. And I understand that there's no real reason to have a whole lot of confidence in them. You have Khalil Mack going back against the Raiders revenge game, I suppose. It's not really in Oakland, it's in Vegas. I'm not sure on the Bears side defensively, even though they've looked better, who's going to stop Darren Waller? Like, who's the guy in the middle of the field? Like, is Roquan Smith going to just have to stay with him the whole time? That takes away so many other opportunities for them in the middle of the field. It just doesn't set up well for the Bears. It feels like a stay away from me because I don't know who's going to be calling the plays. I don't know what quarterback is going to be involved in this game. If anything, I'll probably lean over 45.5 because I do think the Raiders are going to be able to score some points. And if the Bears can't score and the defense is on the field for the bulk of the game, then the Raiders are going to have more opportunities to have this Bears defense break. So I like the over 45.5 if I have to take a side either way.
I'll take the Raiders to cover, but I got to say, I do it hesitantly because the Raiders, they get off to a 3-0 start and everybody's going crazy. Well, they won 2 of those games in overtime, in weird, wild games. They beat Pittsburgh. Then they get beat pretty handily by the Chargers. I think the Raiders are a decent team, but if Fields plays in this game, you could definitely sell me on the idea that he throws for 250 and runs for 70, and Gruden can't figure out how to get him stopped, and it just turns into one of these things where the Bears are able to win. I think, though, the problem I have is obviously Matt Nagy's involved, so that is one problem I have. The other problem I have is I feel like the Bears are just so severely lacking in weapons. Like, Montgomery's out. If you do anything to stop Robinson, I feel like they just can't move the football. And the Bears' offensive line is terrible. The Raiders have gotten pressure. I like the Raiders to cover, but I agree with you. I wouldn't bet it with my money. But if you're asking me who would I take, I would take the Raiders to win by a touchdown.
Yeah, we'll just take Carm's money. We'll just take that big bonus, and we'll go ahead and put it on the Raiders here.
Fields has really good chemistry with Darnell Mooney. Those guys are friends off the field, and it's showing up on the field with the double move and also the diving catch. And Mooney has got a ton of speed, so that's one weapon. But yeah, the David Montgomery thing is obviously an enormous loss, and their backup Damian Williams is also hurt too. So I don't know who's going to be carrying the football for the Bears. By the way, one other note that I thought was interesting this week. Week 3, Justin Fields led the league with an aggressive rate thrown into coverage of 45%. Week 4, he was at 5.9%. So he went from trying to throw balls into a tight pocket to let's just be really careful here. Bill Lazor, offensive coordinator, Lazor the savior, putting a quarterback in position to actually be successful. Thank you for getting out of the way, Matt Nagy. The stats backing up that you absolutely should have been out of the way. Congratulations. All right, that's enough Bears talk. 49ers and Cardinals, another awesome game this week. Ben, they're falling in love with Arizona. Best team in football. Some people are saying that. They're out of their minds, but they're saying it. 5.5-point favorite at home versus San Francisco. 50.5 is the number.
Yeah, this feels like the perfect time to jump off the Cardinals bandwagon and get back towards the 49ers. This is like the ultimate public fade of the week. You saw the 49ers lose 2 games in a row, got gashed in the second half at home by the Seahawks last week after a disappointing loss in week 3 at home against the Packers. They go back on the road where they're 2-0 this year. Arizona's being inflated based on Kyler Murray driving up the MVP odds. He's currently the favorite over at WinBet at plus 450. Cardinals are tied now for co-favorites to win the NFC West with the LA Rams. Like, it's just, all of this feels like this is going to be such a heavy public play, and there's no confidence right now. And frankly, we're not sure whether or not the 49ers are going to roll out with Jimmy G or Trey Lance, and that's going to scare public bettors away too. So I think if you're looking to take the 49ers like I am this week, I think you can probably wait, and this line could possibly even move up to 6. Maybe even 6.5, depending on how much the market falls in love with Arizona. But for purposes of this show, because Carmen, I know you gave me a hard time with this last week, you're saying, well, maybe if you move the line here. No, I will take the 49ers plus 5.5 on the road. I think the defense bounces back. Remember, in Arizona's fall from grace in the final few weeks of the season, they really struggled in a home matchup against the 49ers. I think they know how to play Kyler Murray really well.
And CJ Beathard was involved in that game. And they still, or Nick Mullins, one of them, and they still lost to him. I'm with you 100%. This game is, whenever people start to just completely jump on a bandwagon with a team that has proven nothing, and in this case, it's an entire existence, right? Nothing against the Cardinals. There's no way I'm taking them minus 5.5 in this game. Like, maybe they win. This is a team that in the last minute of the third quarter was losing at Jacksonville and then should have lost to Minnesota if they could kick a field goal. And that stuff gets lost because it's like, oh, they beat the Rams last week. That's fine. It's a great win. If Garoppolo plays, I think the Niners will cover this. I think the Niners may even win the game outright. If they don't play Garoppolo, then you have a little bit more of like, well, you don't really know what's going to happen because Lance is playing. But Shanahan, I think, is going to stitch a clown suit on Kingsbury in this game. That is the biggest mismatch to me all the way. Niners minus 5, plus 5.5. Whether they win or not, I don't know. They're also like, that's the easiest tease in the world, right? Like if you got a 3-team teaser going, like tease them up to 11.5. That I feel like I don't care who the quarterback is. I feel good about it.
For the record, the public, they're on Arizona, but they're not overly on the Cardinals. 62% of the money right now is coming in on Arizona, 38 on San Francisco. The public absolutely the biggest public spread this week is nobody in the entire world is picking the Jacksonville Jaguars to beat the Tennessee Titans. So if you want to fade the public this week, ride those Jaguars, which is super dangerous, but that's the recommendation. They're getting 4.
You could ride an actual Jaguar, and I think that would be less dangerous than riding with Jackson.
All right, two more to go here. Let's do the
Meyer joke in there somewhere too. By the way,
yeah. Let's not get HR involved. But yes, there's plenty.
Way to go, Urban. Good job, buddy. Hey, Bills and Chiefs. Kansas City's a 3-point favorite at home. The public actually loves Buffalo in this game, which I think is interesting. Biggest number this week at 56.5. Ben.
This is tough because we finally saw the Chiefs get off the schneid and cover the spread in a regular season game for the first time since November 1st, 2020, when they were 20.5-point favorites at home against the Jets and still ended up winning that game 35-9, or it was either 35-9 or 34-9. Still ended up covering the 20.5. Now they're back home. Clearly a very, very important game, but Buffalo has figured out after just a weird loss to Pittsburgh. I mean, they're the class of the AFC right now. Like, it's not Kansas City. Kansas City still found a way to get their offense going, but still gave up 30 points to the Philadelphia Eagles, and a team that I think is actually with a really solid quarterback in Jalen Hurts. Probably a conversation for another time. I don't know how I want to handle this game, and it's weird to see the Chiefs not be, a public big favorite play. Like they've been that way for so long, and bettors have just suffered up until last week. But with Buffalo, the Chiefs have had their number the last two times that they've played them, both in Buffalo in Week 5 or Week 6 last year,
Yep.
when Kansas
Yep.
City won fairly effectively, and then in the AFC Championship game when Kansas City won effectively as well. But the defense is nowhere near where it needs to be, and it's probably going to lean me in the direction. And I hate doing this because I hate taking overs on Sunday Night Football because that is such a public play, especially with these two teams. But I just don't know how Kansas City stops Buffalo. And I think with Mahomes throwing for 4 or 5 touchdown passes last week, how Buffalo's going to slow him and the rest of this offense down. Travis Kelce's not going to have a 4 or 5 catch game again. Like he's going to be active. Tyreek Hill's been playing terrific as of last week. I'll side with the public here, take the over 56.5, even though it's not necessarily what I know I should do. It's what I want to do, and I feel like that's going to be the play this week.
You wimp. Kansas City. Go ahead, Verderame. Where's the Chiefs' confidence here, Mr. Arrowhead Addict?
No, look, man. You know what? It's not a lack of confidence. I just think it's a weird game. Like Buffalo has played nobody 4 straight games. The Steelers are awful. The Dolphins are awful. Okay, Washington's not any good, and Houston is barely a football team. Like you look at the 4 quarterbacks they've played. They're like 4 of the 6 or 7 worst quarterbacks in the league. Like Heineke's the best guy by a mile. So I don't know what to make of it. Like I know they have 2 shutouts. That's incredibly impressive no matter who you're playing. But now you go to Kansas City. Like, do I think they're going to give up 20 points in this game? No, I don't. Like I think the Chiefs are going to score points. However, the Chiefs are the worst defensive team I can remember seeing in a long time. That being said, if you pin me as you got to pick, I would take the Chiefs to win the game. I just think in their building on Sunday Night Football, you know what? It's kind of like I said about Arizona, but the opposite direction, right? Like Arizona, I don't trust because they've never won anything of any significance. And it feels like every time you start believing in teams like that, that's when you get bitten in the ass and they immediately fall on their face. This, I feel like, is the other way. You're going to hear all week about how Buffalo's defense is great. And here come the Bills, and they're the favorites. And you hear that for years with New England, right? Like you get like Pittsburgh going up there on like a Monday night in Foxborough, and the Pats were 3-2. And then you'd watch for like 10 minutes and go, oh God, no, like New England is just going to steamroll them in this game.
For the record, I don't like to be meathead fan guy. Just that's your team. You got to pick them. I mean, that guy's really a huge idiot. But for some reason, I want you both because Ben lives in Kansas City and Verderame, you're wearing red underwear right now. And
I'm not sure if I'm or I'm not, but regardless, like I will say that I have not picked the Chiefs to cover a game. 3 of the 4 games I've not picked them to cover.
I guess I'm just annoyed at like people jumping off the Chief bandwagon. Just everybody settle down. Long season. They're still the favorite. Ben.
Do you think that people are legitimately jumping off the bandwagon? I think there's concern. I think there's reasonable concern.
There should be.
How bad the defense is. But I think if you ask Chiefs, if you polled Chiefs fans, if you went back to our old stomping grounds at 610 Sports, and you ask Chiefs fans whether or not they're making the playoffs or whether they're going to be one of the top 2-3 seeds in the AFC, I don't think anyone's panicked there. But I think this team reminds them much more of the team that lost to the Patriots in the AFC Championship game than the team that won the Super Bowl the following year.
Fair enough. All right. There's some breaking stuff about Urban Meyer coming up here that we can hit on the back end of the pod, but let's just do the last game. Colts and the Ravens. Baltimore is a 6.5-point favorite at home over Indy, who shocked the world by getting Tennessee last week, which was the one game that I lost in my strong week in my own little gambling pool. But at any rate, Baltimore 6.5, Ben.
Ravens were a popular road underdog last week. I think they're going to be a popular home favorite this week. Nobody wants anything to do with the Colts, and they got themselves a much-needed victory, in large part because they were able to run Jonathan Taylor and get him going a little bit. And Carson Wentz was able to be protected in this game as well. We've talked about this on this pod before, Verderame, about how Baltimore blitzes like no other. And when you have Carson Wentz with 2 bum legs right now, that could be a bit of a concern. At the same time, I also trust Frank Reich to come up with a competent offensive game plan to run Jonathan Taylor, especially if they're putting that much pressure. I think he has a big game. I think the Colts cover the spread.
Okay. Look, you and I are on opposite sides of this. Baltimore typically beats the hell out of bad teams. I think Indianapolis is a bad team. Now, that being said, they barely beat Detroit. So fair enough. And the Raiders, I don't know if they're good or bad yet. They lost that game. So maybe that's not the case this year. They have a lot of injuries.
Their best game came last week against Denver on the road. I just don't know if they can do it again.
Right. No question. Because the Chiefs game really, I mean, if Edwards-Helaire doesn't fumble, they probably lose that game. But I agree with you. I just, you know what, I'll be blunt. I can't ride with Wentz in this game. I just can't do it. I have so much. All I picture is if you bet on him and then you're watching that game, you're like, God Almighty, why? Why did I do this? He just threw his third pick. Like I can't. He just took his 8th sack of the game. Like I can't do. So I'm going to take Baltimore. I think they win by like 10 points. It's a. If by the way though, what is the over under in this game?
47.
I might take the under in that. I could see a game where it's like 20, 23 to 16 or something. But I will take Baltimore to cover.
Hey Ben, did you cross paths in your time at Sports Illustrated with Michael Silver?
I did not.
Okay. He was there. I forget the timeline. Ben, before he joined us, was with SI. Before he was with 610 Sports Radio. And Ben's constantly ascending in a positive direction career. But Michael Silver from SI is why I'm bringing this up. Here's the thread. The Urban Meyer situation in Jacksonville has reached a crisis point, especially in the locker room. One player told me, quote, he has zero credibility in that stadium. He had very little to begin with. And the second in the thread is players were particularly put off by the fact that Meyer canceled Monday's team meeting as he dealt with the uproar over videos of him and a young woman getting cozy in that Ohio bar. Quote, he even canceled the team meetings. He was too scared. Instead, Meyer only apologized to position groups individually. He portrayed the woman in the videos as a random person who was just there dancing. Suffice to say, the audience was highly skeptical. One player, we looked at him like, what the fuck? Right when he left, everyone started laughing, started dying laughing, and he knew it. Bottom line, the player saying, quote, it's bad. I don't know how he's going to function. That's amazing.
Times are good. Times are good. I know Mike Silver pretty well. Actually, pretty good friends with him. And I will say he's a hell of a reporter. B, so I trust everything he reported. And B, if he's reporting that, it's because he's heard that from, I'm sure, multiple people at this point. That is not surprising. And you know me, Carm, I've hated that hire since they made it. I thought he'd last 1 year. I don't know if he's making it to Christmas. It's so bad. I fully expect him to just leave and take the USC job. I really do.
But do you think Jacksonville, given everything that they dealt with to try and go ahead and make this hire, from just purely from a PR standpoint, don't they just kind of have to ride it out and then say to Urban, all right, if you want to go, please go take the USC job, get out of here, rid us of your stench in this locker room, and we can all move on. But I think if you're Jacksonville, you have to try and save face here and say, no, we're committed to Urban Meyer, unless this situation gets so bad that there's some sort of a team revolt. I don't think they can fire him. I think they need him to leave.
Well, I agree. And I'll just add quick. So there also statement came out on Tuesday morning from Shad Khan, who's the owner of the team. Statement reads, quote, I have addressed this matter with Urban. Specifics of the conversation will be held in confidence. What I will say is his conduct last weekend was inexcusable. I appreciate Urban's remorse, which I believe is sincere. Now he must regain our trust and respect. That will require a personal commitment from Urban to everyone who supports, represents, or plays for our team. I am confident he will deliver. Let me tell you, when you put out a statement that in part reads, he must regain our trust and respect, and it's about your head coach, not good. And I'm with you, Ben. They're going to save as much face as they possibly can here. But I literally would not be surprised if behind the scenes they're talking with him right now, going, "Look, man, if you get a college offer, we would prefer that you take it." Get out.
I didn't mean to jump on you there.
No, go ahead.
Verderame,
No, I'm done. That's all I have to say.
I just don't like you keep on saying this, like he's going to go to USC. How does USC hire him at this point? You can't
Because they
hire that
don't
guy.
care.
It's such a
College
different
sports,
level at the college level where he's so much more established and he's won. And they also know that's likely going to be a short timetable before something else inevitably happens and they can kind of prepare for that. But USC right now is at the point where they need a big name. They need somebody that can stabilize, and he can do that fairly quickly, even after this disaster in the NFL. I mean, Saban was a disaster in the
100%.
NFL, and Alabama couldn't wait to bring him in, and it's worked out wonders for them. He's not Nick Saban, but if you're looking for a Saban light that's already won multiple championships, I think Urban to USC still makes a ton of sense.
Ben, good to see you, brother. Good work.
Good to see you guys. Good luck with these bets. I hope you wrote these ones down as well.
Yeah, we're keeping track, baby. 3-3, tied up last week. We'll see if one of you can take the lead on our week 5. And yes, follow Ben on Twitter and read everything at FanSided, or else we will find you and make you hang out with right something. Okay. This podcast is brought to you by FanSided. Join our community of over 300 sites from sports to pop culture and everything in between.